Hiya, I'd just like to show you one of the fantastic features of our Rare Earth Load and Fold, and that's the ability to repeat stamp using this system. Now this is a perfect technique if you are batch making cards. Perhaps you're making wedding invites or Christmas cards when we've got dozens and dozens to make and we need a quick fix to make lots of cards in not a lot of time, but we still want them to look absolutely stunning. Our Rare Earth Load and Fold will come in perfectly for this. So I've got the rectangular one, but there are lots of different sizes of load and fold available. It's completely up to you, just depends on the size of the project that you're working on as to what size of load and fold you use. I know personally I've got several different sizes. It just depends on the size of cardstock that you've got as to what size load and fold you use. So all I've done is I've taken a square of white cardstock. Now this is a smooth cardstock. That's going to allow us to get a lovely crisp impression when we stamp out our image. If you were using something like a watercolour cardstock, it does have a slight texture to it, which can affect the impression that we get with our stamped image. But with a smooth cardstock, we do get that lovely impression. Of course, the cardstock that we do use is sort of dictated by how we are planning to colour in that image. So if I was going in with my Ink Lily alcohol pens, or any other alcohol pen for that matter, I would definitely go for a super smooth cardstock. But if I was going to be using a water-based medium like watercolour paints, watercolour pencils, or watercolouring using ink pads, a watercolour paper would be better. However, in this instance, I'm just going for a black and white, crisp, clean image, so I'm going to go with a smooth cardstock. So the two stamps that I'm going to be working with today are new stamps from Rare Earth. They're actually from our Jolly Holly Christmas collection. And I've just chosen this holly sprig and a sentiment, and as you can see, they have been used quite a lot already. I do really like these stamps, I have to say. And I've just putted up my piece of white cardstock on this lip, this bottom right lip edge of my load and fold. So you can see we do have one side that's got this grid system on, the other side's got this well in. And you can use it in lots of different ways. Some people will use it in this sort of direction. Some people will have their stamp clinging onto the grid or the other side. It's completely up to you. The way I use it is I'll tend to put my cardstock against the bottom right of this well and I'll have my stamp on the grid. I just find personally that's easier, but you will find your own way when you're working with your load and fold. So I'm just going to create a really simple composition. So I'm thinking I could repeat stamp this multiple times and create lots of the same Christmas card really quickly, but it'd be a really gorgeous, stylish design because we've got that lovely detail within those stamps. So I'm thinking a sentiment onto the bottom right and then the holly on the top left, just as an embellishment. So once I'm happy with my positioning, and don't forget when you are positioning your stamps, it's the stamped surface, so that raised stamped surface touching my cardstock. So I should be able to read the writing on the stamp, on this sentiment stamp at this stage. Once I'm happy with my positioning, I'm going to take this hinge system, so I've got the grid side here, and I'm just going to close it and press down to pick up my stamps. Sometimes you'll find you take the cardstock with it, that's no problem at all. Just because these stamps are not sticky as such, but they do have that cling element to them. So sometimes you can pick up the cardstock, but that's no issue at all. Because I knew that I butted it up against the bottom right hand lip there, I can just move that back into place. If you prefer, you can use a low tack tape to tape your cardstock into position. That will just give you that extra security that your cardstock is going to remain in the same place every single time. So always when you're inking up your images, try and have this section where you've got your stamps adhered to on a flat surface. If it's at an angle, you can struggle a little bit with inking the stamps up evenly, which is not what we want. So I'm going to take my black VersaFine ink pad, which is a pigment ink, and it's just going to allow us to get a really lovely, crisp, deep black impression. And it's going to pick up all those fine details within those two stamps. So getting my load and fold onto a flat surface where I'm inking, just to make sure we get that even impression, that even coat of ink all over these two stamps. And I'm just gently tapping all over those two stamps, just like so. And then just make sure I've butted up that piece of cardstock along that bottom right lip, closing the load and fold, and just applying even pressure all over those two stamps. Some people refer to it as finger dancing, just making sure we get that crisp impression. You can see that's actually stamped out beautifully, but if I had missed a bit, perhaps when I was inking, then I could go back in, as long as my cardstock hadn't moved, so butting up again against that bottom right lip, could take my ink, re-ink my stamp, close again, stamp over the top and fill out any areas I might have missed. However, if I've got lots and lots of the same design that I want to make, I can pull in another piece of cardstock, which I've cut to exactly the same size as my first piece. I can put that up in exactly the same place as I did that first one. I've not moved my stamps, so that I know when I go to stamp this again, I'm going to get exactly the same composition as I did with my first image. So you can get the same design over and over again, which is perfect when you are batch making. So again, even pressure all over, but not worrying too much if I have missed a bit, which I've not. But if I had, again, just restamp and that's nothing to worry about. So as you can see, we've got two of exactly the same design. You could have as many of those as you like. You could have 20, 30, perhaps it's for wedding invites, batch making Christmas cards. And you know that every design is exactly the same. You don't have to worry about positioning the stamps every single time on an acrylic block and worrying, are they exactly the same? You've got that continuity, that exact same composition every single time, which is just another fantastic use of your Load and Fold by Rare Earth.